this year, actually July the 5th, 2018 marks the 70th anniversary of the formation of the National Health Service. So we're delighted to be able to commission you to produce some work for us, a painting, which will be our signature piece. So I wonder if you could start by just telling us how you began that process.
So the process for me was initially to think about what the NHS meant and to kind of look back across the whole history from back in 1948 onwards, and even kind of just prior to then. Actually, there's a lot of interesting things that were happening, so I was interested in, and kind of looking through those developments that happened throughout the kind of 50s and 60s, and the dives and the peaks that happened. It kind of led on to me thinking about where I could go with the project and what I could, where my kind of point of navigation was, and how I'd approach the outcome and what I'd make. So I started with thinking about some of the ideas of community, which was kind of a big part of this this kind of development that happened, and some of the initial ethos of the NHS that I found, and that was kind of a draw to me. I thought about loads of different things to begin with, and there was too many kind of tangents to know where to go. So I thought about taking trips to various places and talking to all sorts of professionals and patients, but that felt a bit too kind of disjointed and not quite close enough to me. So that led to me coming back and thinking much more about the immediate community around me.
I think the NHS is so much part of our social fabric, and the idea of it being looking after the community, that at some point we all use the NHS.
Everybody in the past 70 years.
Yeah,
definitely.
So how do you express that in a painting? It was a huge question. It's a huge commission in a way, but I think that idea of the circle and sort of the enveloping arms, or however you might.
Yeah, and that completely, we're completely surrounded by it, and we're entwined and integrated with it. I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't kind of close this spherical shape. I wanted to bring it so it was kind of coming in, and all of this movement and energy here was a part of that. And it was inside and it was outside of that. So I think this, maybe even this section where it's coming in, is there's always new people entering this cycle all the time and entering that rhythm. With it being was it the fourth biggest organisation in the world, and it's quite a powerful thing to even comprehend. And that's what we're in,
So you're working on the piece behind you.
Yeah.
I know that your work is very layered. You spend a lot of time layering the work and editing and revisiting. So I wonder, perhaps you just say a little bit about your technique.
How I'd usually work with a lot of darker colours and a lot more red tones. I didn't want to associate things like blood and all that kind of stuff within this work. So it was much more, I guess, a much more careful approach, and it wasn't restrictive. Wasn't restricting how I'd work, but it was another layer of the process which was different. So these colours I wanted to give, they're starting to hopefully give a bit more of a energetic feel, but comforting and kind of a powerful feel in that sense, as opposed to it being this brutal surface which I usually, sometimes have in my works.
And I know that you spoke to a lot of people as part of your research, so you've got many different ideas and many different sides to the story. So it's interesting that your personal feelings as well come through in your work.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of the people, I was saying it was really difficult to find these questions to ask the people. I was like, where do I start? And one of the things was, I was like, I'm just going to have to ask, what does it mean what does the NHS mean to you? A lot of the people were saying it was all this relief, and just meant everything. It meant life, it meant living, and I was like, these dark colours are not going to allow that to come through. So the lighter colours is much more kind of sunny, exciting and light, bright colours are going to work a lot better here. So that was a test for me to play around with different palette and not just to go to that kind of default that can sometimes happen.
Because the NHS is so much a part of our social fabric now, so it's really interesting for us that we have both a kind of a personal perspective, but also the idea from the community.
Yeah, much more rounded view, hopefully.
Yeah.
A lot of the people I was speaking to really opened my eyes to the whole idea of the NHS being a successful thing, really, a successful service, as much as it's really downplayed in the media now, and it's, you know, they're making it out to be this really terrible negative thing, and we need to return to pre-1948 times. It's just like, that's not what's happening. So that first-hand experience for me was, it was really important to hopefully try and get that message through this work. So,
and it was really important for us to have a young voice. You know, you're a young painter, and we absolutely love your work. So thank you very much for
that's great. Yeah, for sure.